Doug and Bret Underhill. Thanks for joining us on Watercraft Network all the way from Pensacola, Florida.
Well, folks, it's time to kick it old school, so you can feel cool. Give it to me, baby. Baby.
I wish you guys could send some of that nice Floridian weather up here to the Northeast.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It's been nice around here. It's been very like 60s and 70s. It's been awesome. So
Well, we're actually having a mild fall up here. We've been very lucky, but nothing like the weather you guys have down there. You were probably out riding today, weren't you?
I wish.
Unfortunately, school and life get in the way of the lifestyle.
Yeah, unfortunately. So, Bret, congratulations, on that amateur ski stock championship. You got to tell us a little bit about that. What's it like to be the 2017 champ?
Thank you. I was just really stoked. It was a lot of excitement the entire season, and really, it was just a nice kind of conclusion to everything. Just securing the points chase in Charleston. The entire year it was a lot of excitement, and I very very proud of myself, and I feel like I performed really well, and I'm really happy about that. So
As you should be. That's a well earned title. That's a heck of a commitment. And I understand from speaking to you earlier that you're running a super jet, and as we discussed, you're out there, you got your hands full. You're racing every lap. That's
absolutely, and that's
that's
how I
a
like it.
it's a competitive class to begin with. So again, congratulations to you. That's a heck of an achievement, and you really should be proud of it. So what are you doing? You getting ready for next year? You out there keeping your conditioning up, running laps, or do you do anything else? Any other type of activities in the off season?
Well, I'll admit I've been taking a little bit of a break recently, but we are working on getting race skis together. I'm gonna rebuild the Superjet. I'm gonna get into a solid workout regimen. Gonna go ahead and build the HX that I've been wanting to race for a long time, and just be ready for next year. Definitely got to get ready for that.
It breaks an old sport class guy's heart to hear that we have a 17-year-old kid building his own HX and ready to show up at the line.
Yeah.
Kevin, I have to tell you, I never forget when Bret was like 15 years old. He had taken the HX out, and I told him, I said, because I wasn't going to be out on the water with him, I said, hey, no wave jumping, all right? And we get in the pontoon boat about an hour later, and we go out for a ride for a sunset cruise, and Bret is sitting dead in the water and waving us down. So we go and we pick him up, and we drag him back to the yard. And I pull him up on the beach behind our house, and I pop the hood on the HX, and the engine is sitting over sideways. All four engine mounts had broken, and he's sitting here telling me he hadn't been doing any wave jumping with it. So at that point, I said, son, you're going to need a 10 millimeter and a 13 millimeter, and the rest of your night is going to be pretty busy.
That's fantastic. And so,
Yeah.
was that the beginning of your wrenching career? That's how you got started?
It was
Pretty much. Replacing motor mounts was kind of like the first thing, Luckily, that's not so much of that's not really a common event anymore with the Ross motor mounts. But yeah, that happened a lot with the old used 720 motor mounts.
Yeah, and good plug for Robin Haas there. Great guy, fantastic products. Anyone who's
Absolutely.
anyone who does any type of modifications to their watercraft, whether they're a closed course racer or out free riding in the surf or just your average rec rider. Those Ross products. Yeah. We have them in a lot of our skis as well. Those urethane motor mounts. He makes some really really cool. I don't know if you've seen some of his conversion kits. You can drop a 750 and a 550 hull. Robin does some really nice stuff.
Yeah.
And when you look at some of that work, you think it should belong on a shelf in the Smithsonian. The machine work he does is incredible.
Absolutely amazing. So, while we're on the subject, what about the guys over at Pensacola Motorsports? How do they help you out?
Well, they're really great guys, super friendly, and they know the meaning of the sport, and they help out with things like gaskets and other OEM parts that we need. They're able to supply those to us. We get really good quality parts from them, as well as riding gear like helmets. So actually, I mean, this weekend I'm probably going to be going up and picking up a new helmet from them because they got nice fly helmets there.
So full service facility, parts, accessories. I'm assuming sales and service as well.
Yeah,
Kevin,
absolutely.
and they're all performers too. So these guys, they get it. They're not just looking to sell a product. In fact, we took Bret had an SXR, was his race ski, that I could not get this thing squared away 3 days before his first race. And so I take it up to the shop there. They said, there's no way we're going to be able to look to get it fixed. And there was a brand new Superjet sitting right behind me. So I take a picture of it and I send it to Bret's mom and I said, hey, I can't get the ski running, so I'm buying a new ski. And she says, yeah, whatever. I turned off my phone and didn't turn it on until I'd signed the papers.
No backing out now, honey.
Yeah, 72 hours later, that ski went from showroom floor to racing on the tour in 72 hours.
No kidding. So the guys over at Pensacola Motorsports factory pipes set it all up for you, the whole 9 yards?
No, actually, no. I raced it stock, and it was actually it performed really great stock. I mean, obviously, I've made my own modifications that I think make it better, ride plate, intake great, that kind of stuff. But honestly, I mean, as a stock machine, it raced great.
Well, that's really amazing because, as you well know, in closed course, even in the stock classes, every little bit helps. So again, I think a lot of that is youth, and obviously a great riding ability. To be able to get on a stock Superjet and go out and hold your own. Boy, those days have long since passed for some of us. So good for you. That's fantastic. So you got to tell me. Tell me about the Hartwell hole shot. Give me the story. Got to hear it.
Class that I won the points chase in for the year was amateur ski stock, but I was also racing in Pro-Am ski stock, which was with people like Jimmy Wilson and Chris McCluggage, the big names in the sport.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I wasn't expecting to really place or anything. I was just racing my race and just getting the experience that I could while I was there. But the crazy thing was, I mean, and one thing that was a highlight for my season was at one of the motos at Hartwell, I actually got the hole shot in the Pro-Am ski stock race in one of the races, and for a good lap, I held everybody off, and it was really just incredible, and I felt amazing.
Were you at all nervous? Did you feel like that wounded gazelle out on the Serengeti?
Absolutely, and that's true. That's true of every single race. I am basically just shaking with anticipation, but what I just channel that, and I really just, I mean, I basically act like I'm getting serious like people do in movies, and it actually works. It's a little bit weird, but it works. So,
hey, Kevin, it's so funny. If you've never been on the line as a holder and you've never heard that experience of all those two strokes just bang, 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 dropping the water, and then the big splash of water, and then it's really silent. If you've never heard that, there's no way. How do you describe that in English, right?
Right, exactly.
And so Bret's always in the zone when we're in there and we're getting ready, and he's totally focused. But that first time that he lined up in Pro-Am and he looks down the line, and then he looks at me and his eyes are this big, and he says, "That's Jimmy frickin' Wilson."
That is you must have when you hole shotted and you're out in clean water. You must have been like, "Oh my God, I'm out front." I mean, did it? You know what I mean? When you finally realized, you go through the sweeper and you see that clean water, you must have been like, "Oh my goodness." I mean, it just must have been so invigorating.
Yeah, I mean, that was an insane feeling, and I mean, one thing that I thought, and I probably actually said it out loud, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not supposed to be out here. I'm not supposed to be out here in front.
That's great. What a great experience.
Yeah, and I mean, that whole shot, I owe that entirely to Bill Haig. He taught me that whole shot that I used, and it worked. So
Absolute gentleman. I mean, been around this sport forever. what a great guy. And it's nice to hear you say that, that when you're at the races, that camaraderie and that engagement by veterans, that support, it's invaluable. As you just explained, to have a guy like Bill Hague, help you out with your starts. I mean, that's it obviously worked. It worked for you that day, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey Kevin, you gotta. One of the strange things about the sport is that if you knew how much this sport was going to cost you, you would not get into it. And so with guys like Bill who help you along the way, you end up getting into it. And before long, you're like, I can't believe how much money I'm spending on this sport. If you had to pay all that up front, if you had to buy for all that experience up front, there's no way that new families like us could get in the sport.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. Any form of racing is extremely expensive, and it gets hard, year after year to run the tour and to, to travel to all these events. And it's nice for me to hear from you guys speaking, a little bit prior to this that, you're gonna with Bret. I know you have some plans which we'll talk about in a little bit, but your plans next year are kind of not run the whole tour, do some regional stuff, maybe do some traveling, hit some other events. And I think that, brings the fun. Although it's expensive, it brings that fun back to the sport. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
a lot. No, go ahead. I'm
It's
sorry.
funny when you talk about the regional racing. When I hear about how it was back in the '90s, and you had solid regional tours, that's just it sounds like a story too good to be true. But I'm noticing that some of these regions out here on the East Coast, anyway, are starting to get kind of robust regional presence again, and that definitely makes it, I think, a lot easier.
I think you're right. And I think it's an exciting time. There's, here in the Northeast, there's a fantastic, I mean, a really good program. I know down there where you guys in Florida, the P1 Aqua X, I mean, that's a really great tour too. And I think, a lot of what's starting to allow the sport to kind of rebound a bit is classes like the HX that you talked about earlier. If instead of buying a $15,000 runabout, modifying it and taking it out in closed course conditions, if you can pick up an old Yamaha Wave Blaster, a C2HX, an X4 hull, and get into those, if we have those entry type of classes, I really think that's going to help with the rebuilding of closed course, or somewhat equivalent to those glory days of the mid 90s.